to know that we love each other so much that even when we argue, it doesn't matter because we can get through it together.
But at the end of the day, how wonderful that there are seasons like that to remind us, because life is life, right? Life gets busy and we live so far apart, and how wonderful that there are those seasons where we get together. I think the distinction is in the tuning into your heart, that if it is really burnout, are you really overextending? Are you really keeping up with the Joneses? Is it all for show, or does it really come from the inside your internal art?
So what would you tell someone who is caught in that cycle of just burnout?
Yeah.
Where they know that they're not living what we would call their dharma, or where they know their soul is calling them to be, but they've built a whole life around that. And so they feel trapped in it. How would someone even begin to navigate out of that space?
Yeah. I think it must start with a decision. Not everyone is aware that there is another way. It's very difficult for someone, I think, well, I know, I coach a lot of them, in a position where they've built a business rather than building a life. And so to build the business, it is not spending time with family, hanging out with shitty people at work. It's not having time to go into rest, spending time in nature. This is why burnout happens, right? And, there's several different versions of rest. Emotional rest, rest in your nervous system, physical rest, spiritual rest, mental rest. And so to understand that rest is a weapon. Rest is a weapon. I speak to so many people and say, how many times do you go into deep rest in the day? They're like, well, they wouldn't. It's because guilt comes online. But isn't that interesting that you're suffering from burnout, but you don't think you deserve to rest? To rest is not, I will rest when I'm deserved. It's like, no, you are a human being. You deserve to rest. I go into deep rest definitely once a day, sometimes twice a day. I go into deep yoga nidra for 30 minutes and I come back out, or I have a quick 10-minute internal rest. And there are the somatic ways to not experience burnout. But first it must start with a decision. Do you really want this life? Do you really want to start to live your truth, or do you want to not be around for your kids because it's not really sustainable? So it always starts with a decision, because if you're earning a lot of money, you have a great reputation, you have a successful business, it's very difficult to let that stuff go, right, at the end of the day. But then I coach a lot of entrepreneurs who are now spiritual entrepreneurs, because there is this huge disease that's going around and dis-ease, and they think it's psychological pain, but it's spiritual pain, because they're not living the life their soul intended. And that's why we are here, to live the life our soul intended. So to make the decision, do I want this to continue doing it this way, or do I want to continue doing it another way? Because there are different ways to do it, right? And for me, and as well as yourself, Amber, understanding the importance of being a heart-led leader. And being a heart-led leader is not, being all this fluffy stuff. It's our heart is with us from the day that we were born to the day that we die. It is our best friend. Our heart is with us our whole lives. This is what we need to tune into. The truth of this. My heart. Do I continue with this job that's causing me so much pain? Your heart will tell you. Your heart will tell you, not your head. Stay in your head and you're dead, right? So it needs to start with a decision, and then to work your way to nurturing your nervous system again. Our nervous system starts to trust us when we nurture it. So ways to nurture your nervous system is, when a lot of people experience anxiety, overwhelm, depression, or stress, it's because they've, for want of a better term, I'll use it in my language, they've betrayed their nervous system. They've hung around toxic people. They've had toxic thoughts. They're sitting there and their nervous system is going, this is not good for me. 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 But they still sit there because it's their mum, or they still put up with it because it's their sister, or they put up with it because it's their boss, or, their terrible spouse or whatever. And so their nervous system says, I don't trust her anymore. She doesn't nurture me. She's not listening to me. And then the nervous system doesn't perform at its best. And then we experience the dis-ease and the disease. And so the nervous system and the heart work together, you see. But how often do we not listen? And when we don't listen, that's when the burnout happens. That's when the dis-ease and the disease happens.